Hello again. Welcome to the second episode of the Budget Bob Show. I'm Budget Bob from the Wisconsin Council on Children and Families. Today, we're going to talk about the state budget making process here in Wisconsin. Now, like a lot of you, I learned everything I know about how federal bills become laws from watching TV as a kid. Remember Schoolhouse Rock? I'm just a bill, yes I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill, etc., etc. Well, the state budget process is kind of similar to that in a lot of ways, but there are also some key differences. If you remember Schoolhouse Rock, one of the main points was that only a small fraction of the bills that get introduced in Congress actually ever get signed into law. Well, the state budget is the one bill that absolutely has to get signed into law in Wisconsin. Of course, one thing the Schoolhouse Rock folks got right is that some stories are better told in song. Talking about the budget,
state budget.
That's what I said. You can't budget, don't want to end up in the red. Gotta make the numbers come out right.
Gotta come out
Don't want the
right.
purse strings too loose or too tight.
State budget,
yeah. The budget process really got rolling back in the fall when state agencies had to submit their budget requests to the budget office in the Department of Administration. Now, these requests are not just wish lists. Usually they're given some sort of marching orders from the governor along the lines of, you have to trim 3% across the board or something like that. The governor and his analysts scrutinize these requests, and then the process really kicks into gear in about mid-February when the governor unveils his budget proposal to the legislature and the people of Wisconsin. He outlines the highlights of his proposal in a budget address, which goes something like this. I got a modest proposal for how we're going to spend your dough.
State budget.
We're cutting taxes on Mary and Curly, but freezing funding for Mo.
State budget.
We're robbing Peter so we can pay Paul, but when we're through we'll have a budget that pays for it all. State budget, yeah! Okay, so, yeah, that line about robbing Peter to pay Paul in the song, that wasn't really fair or accurate, I admit. But you get the idea. The governor outlines his spending priorities, and then he talks about where the money's going to come from to pay for all that stuff. At that point, the state's crack team of number crunchers, the Legislative Fiscal Bureau, takes over. They analyze the governor's budget proposal, and they prepare a gigantic summary of the whole thing. Now, from there, the process moves over to the Joint Finance Committee. What's a Joint Finance Committee, you ask? 16 hearty legislators leap into the fray. 8 from the Assembly and 8 from the Senate rise to seize the day. 6 of the 8 from the majority party, 2 from the other side. 16 hearty legislators, a budget they'll decide. The Joint Finance Committee conducts a series of hearings around the state so regular people can come and give their input on the budget. Once they've gathered information from those hearings and other sources, the Joint Finance Committee prepares their own version of the budget. That can be quite different from the governor's proposal. The next stop for the budget is the full Assembly and full Senate. One at a time, each House takes the Joint Finance version of the bill, and members can propose all sorts of amendments and changes, and they can debate their ideas on the floor. And eventually the full membership votes on the entire bill. Once they pass it, it moves over to the other house where that whole process takes place. If the two houses end up passing versions of the bill that are significantly different from each other, then a conference committee composed of members of each house is appointed to iron out the differences between the two. Once the conference committee comes up with a compromise bill, it goes back to both houses of the legislature for approval. No more tweaking and amending, just a yes or no vote. And then, once both houses of the legislature approve the bill, it lands on the governor's desk. Yes, this very desk I'm sitting at for his signature. But hold on, it's not over yet, because in Wisconsin, the governor wields broad powers to do what are called blind item vetoes. That means he can cross out whole items, he can change dollar values, even change statutory language to make it more to his liking. Then, when he's done with that, if the legislature really hates any of his vetoes, they can override one of them. But that doesn't happen all that often because it takes a 2/3 vote in both houses to do so. There's another famous Bob, Fighting Bob. Ideally, all this budget stuff is finished by sometime in July of the odd-numbered year in question, but sometimes it drags out a lot longer than that. Last time around, for example, in 2007, the budget was not signed into law until late October, 117 days behind schedule. Well, there you have it. That's how the budget gets made in Wisconsin. For more information about the state budget and for ongoing updates as the budget process unfolds, I'd urge you to visit our website at www.wccf.org and check back pretty soon for the next episode of the Budget Bob Show. Next time, we're going to talk about what it means to have a budget deficit and how we ended up with one as big as this. See you then. Talking about the budget,
State budget.
that's what I said. You can't budget,
Can't budget.
don't want to end up in the red. Gotta make the numbers come out right.
Come out
Don't want the
right.
purse strings too loose or too tight.
State